All right, so let's get after it. This is our production mastermind. We've got a special guest today, Aaron Novello, top agent, top coach, and he's going to unleash his wisdom on us. Let's start with a positive focus. Everyone, turn your cameras on and get in the chat. Everyone, last 7 days, one production-related win. Big or small, I don't care what it is. Something on the sales and production side of your business that you're proud of, you're grateful for, that you can brag on. This is the kind of group that we hear others' wins and it lifts us up. And that's why we share this stuff. So now I have to figure out how to. And if you guys can mute yourself, but turn your cameras on if you're able. And Aaron, I'm gonna pin you. All right, so production related positive focus. What's going on good in your business? Something you're proud of, grateful for. There's like lots of science around the psychology of contentment and fulfillment when you're always looking for the good things. It's so easy to look for the bad things. It's an easy rut. I've fallen into it many, many times. All right, so I'm going to spotlight you, Aaron. And so let's keep the positive focus running in. But brother, I'm going to give you the stage and let you do your thing. I'm recording here. We're live in Game Changers Nation. And let's go.
Perfect, man. Well, listen, I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to be with you guys here today. I'm aware everybody on this call is spending some of their non-refundable precious breaths with me. The average human gets about 75 years on planet Earth, right? Women are typically a little more than men, but that's what's average. So you'll be able to determine at the culmination of our time together if this has been a productive use of that time. I'm also where I'm choosing to do the same with you, right? Spend time away from other things I could be doing and people I could be doing it with. So my intention today is to give you my undivided attention and to pour out and share in hopes that something that I share with you will be helpful or useful. And it's interesting because Lars, he had you guys have a focus, right? A pointed focus around the production side of the business. And what I wrote down when you said that, Lars, is that there's two kind of portions of business. There's clouds and there's dirt. So clouds is systems, processes, procedures, SOPs, which 2 or 3 years ago, I didn't even know what that acronym meant, right? Standard operating procedures. And then there's dirt. And the dirt portion of the business is the pushing, the shoving. It's going on listing appointments. It's competing with other agents. It's getting offers that are less than the asking price. It's having to give price adjustments. That's the dirt of this business. And as a marketplace begins to change and shift, I'm curious, has anybody besides me noticed that the marketplace is beginning to change and shift? 100%. Then the focus, right, as Lars was indicating, needs to be on the production side of things because revenue is the oxygen of a business. Without oxygen, it dies, right? So that's what our focus is going to be on today. And what I think is like particularly interesting is I've started to hear from agents, and I'm sure you guys have as well, or maybe lenders, you're noticing a little bit of chatter and anxiousness. You guys noticing that? Yep, 100%. And they're starting to be increasingly asking me questions like, hey, when is this going to stop? Or how long is this going to last for? Now, what do you think is underneath? Go ahead and drop in the chat what you think is underneath those questions that they're asking. When is, yep, fear, 100%. And the reason why it's fear is because they don't know what to do, right? Because knowledge equals confidence and ignorance equals fear. And the truth is for most agents, if they've been selling real estate for, I'd say about 4 or 5 years, they've never experienced a marketplace that has fluctuated or changed. I've had coaching clients freak out, come to a call and say, hey, we just put on the market and it's been 48 hours and we don't have an offer yet. I'm like, oh, that's cute. You thought that was normal. You thought that was like actually what this game is. And that's actually not what it is at all, right? So with that being said, I want to I'm going to show the screen and I want you to like get a clear picture because everybody has difficult seasons in life, guys. Everybody goes through a challenging season. And one of my challenging seasons was in 2007. Can you guys see what I'm looking at? Yep. Okay, so in 2007, there you go. It's when that tough season took place. And what was happening was I was in Gainesville. I just graduated from the University of Florida. My first calendar year, I made $13,000. Not something people would put you on a podcast to talk about, not something that people would pay you to teach them how to do, because I didn't understand what the game was. And then the second year, I was on track, got an accurate assessment, on track to do 60 deals. And then my mother has like a very extreme health event that causes me to shut down the business, move back home, because it required everybody's immediate attention. And then guess what happened? The marketplace actually collapsed. Now, what's interesting is what we're experiencing right now, guys, is not a marketplace collapsing. I know a lot of people are behaving that way and are even trying to convince themselves that that's what's happening. It's not what's happening at all. Okay, this is just a normal market gyration, market kind of correction, right? So what does an actual market collapse look like? Now, prior to getting to that, I guess I'm wondering, how many people, drop in the chat if you've been selling real estate for less than 5 years? Drop in the chat if you've been selling real estate for less than 5 years. Okay, good. I'm seeing some hands pop up. Drop in the chat if you've been selling real estate for less than 10 years. Okay. So what I'm aware of is most of you guys have no idea what that actually looks like. What it looks like is inventory exploding, right? We had 22,000 homes on the market in my marketplace in 2008. Foreclosures skyrocketed. 50% of all the properties that were selling in Southeast Florida were foreclosures. Sales came to a screeching halt for a specific period of time. And we've seen prices go up exponentially over the last 18 months, right? By 30, sometimes even more %. But imagine that happening in the opposite direction. Okay? That's what a marketplace crash actually looks like. That is not what this is at all. We've gone from 8%, or 0.08 inventory, months of inventory to like 2.4. So, I mean, that's not a market collapsing. This is just a market correction and gyration. Now, I want you to be clear that that experience that I had, guys, was the absolute defining moment in my career, because I had gotten obsessed with this idea of doing 100 deals a year. Absolutely 100% obsessed, right? And this environment of a marketplace correction actually provided me the environment that caused me to get faster, quicker, stronger, more skilled, right? Actually caused me to dial in systems. It actually caused me and turned me into the person that's on this call with you, okay? So from that environment came 2,000 homes sold, came now a coaching and training business, came speaking, came being in a position to elevate others. So I need everybody on this call to understand that this market, shift, which I don't like to use that word because it's overused and it makes me want to throw up when I hear people say it. A market changing and correcting is an opportunity for you to refine your skill set, because when times get tough, only the skilled get paid. If you're taking notes, write that down. When times get tough, only the skilled get paid. Okay. So what I'd like to do with the time that I have allotted right now is to really share with you guys what is required, in my opinion, to thrive in any marketplace, okay? Whether it's going up, down, or sideways. How many people are up for that? Let me see a show of hands. Raise your hand if you're up for that. Good. So there's a formula for this, okay? And the first part of the formula, this comes from a book called Principles, written by a guy named Ray Dalio. You need an accurate assessment of reality in order to produce a good outcome. So I have to actually see what is first, not the way I would like it to be or the way other people are thinking it is, but the way it actually is. And then and only then can I make decisions in accordance with that, and that'll increase the chances that I'll get what I want. Okay? So I know it's really difficult right now to make sense, because how many people have seen data or content saying the marketplace is going to crash? Yep. How many people have seen data and content saying the prices are going to keep going up exponentially? Yep. So it's very difficult to say, like, okay, well, what's actually true, right? So first we need an accurate assessment of reality. The next part of the formula that he gave us is that a dream plus dealing with reality plus determination is a successful outcome. Now, which part of this equation do you think is the hardest for most people? Is it the dream? No. Everybody has a dream. Everybody has various different people or places or things in that dream, right? If we were to survey the room. Is it determination? Some people have determination, some more than others, but I think everybody has, particularly if you're on this call, you have some level of determination. It's the dealing with reality piece that's the hardest. Because in the dealing with reality, we have to admit to ourselves, we're not as fast as we think we are. We're not as skilled as we think we are. We're not as, quick as we think we are. We're not as business savvy as we thought that we were, right? So he gives us this formula in the book. First, I need an accurate assessment. Then he gives us the dream plus dealing with reality plus determination equals a successful outcome. So now what we need to do is assess reality. So how do we get to what's true, right? Well, the first way is we have to study. We have to actually gather information. So we went through a whole time frame for 18 or 24 months where we didn't have to know market statistics if we wanted to sell real estate. It just didn't matter. That is no longer the case. And all we have to look at is a few metrics. You look at inventory and you look at sales, right? And the amount of price reductions that are taking place. And you can start to see a pattern start to emerge. And what I've seen universally across the country, depending on marketplaces, is that inventory is going up year over year and sales have gone down year over year, anywhere from 15 to 20%, depending on a geographic location, right? So first I have to study information, okay? The next thing I need to do is triangulate ideas with believable people. So what that means, believable is somebody that's produced an outcome that you wish to produce consistently over an extended period of time. Lars is a believable person. I am a believable person, right? So first you study, you gather information. Then what you do is you sit in a room with believable people and you tell them what you think. And what that does is that allows you to get to as close to the truth as possible. Now, if you find yourself in the presence of a believable person and you're arguing with them, you should probably take a step back, take some notes and say, hey, what am I potentially missing here? Because if they're producing the outcome that you wish to produce, that means they have an accurate assessment of reality. Does that make sense? That means they must be behaving in accordance with reality, hence the reason why they're getting the outcome that they want. Right? So what is reality? Now I'm going to show you some stats. This is from like a California marketplace, but it's true, you know, no matter which marketplace that we're in. So where are we actually at? So first we're going to look, before we look at the micro level, we're going to look at the macro level, right? Because first we have to see what's happening economically. And what this is this is a chart of historical inflation over the last 60, 70 years. So you'll notice that the last time inflation was at 9.1% was in the 70s. Okay, and I'm sure you guys have heard this. If you've heard this, drop something in the chat like, yes, I heard that. Okay, cool. Well, the next chart is what's called the Fed funds rate. Now, what's interesting is when I ask agents what the Fed funds rate is, maybe 10% of the population knows, which is pretty interesting because it ends up affecting what we do, right? And what the Fed funds rate is it's the rate that banks, borrow money from the Federal Reserve, the overnight rate. So the last time, if you look in the 70s, the Fed funds rate was all the way at 8%. The Fed funds rate right now is at 2.5%. That's interesting. So what's the probability moving forward that they're going to continue to keep raising that if they want to get inflation under control? Very, very high. If I was a betting man, I'd bet 10, 15, 20,000 bucks if that's going to happen. Now, here's a historical chart of mortgage rates since the 70s. So if you look, the last time inflation was really high, mortgages were like at 8 or 9%. We're freaking out about 5.5%. Okay. So again, we don't have a crystal ball. At the same time, history usually repeats itself. This is just another one of those. And the only tool and mechanism that we have at our disposal to get inflation under control is this. You have to raise the Fed funds rate, and that's the way that they can control the money supply, and that's what causes it to come down. So that gives us a clear picture as to moving forward what we can expect. So us believing or imagining that this is going to be over by the end of the year or the next 3 months or 4 months, that's not a realistic expectation. We need to get that out of our mind immediately. Okay. So that's on the macro level. Then on a micro level, these are numbers in Los Angeles County, but it's true, if we zero down in each individual county, we can see what's happening. So the top number is active listings, which we see are climbing, and the bottom number are sales, and the sales are off by about 18 to 20%. That's why you guys are seeing homes sit on the market. That's why you're pricing it. You're like, Aaron, I thought it was going to sell in a week, but it didn't. That's why you have to go back and get price reductions now, right? Now, this is another county. It's in Ventura County, also in California, but you see the same thing. Inventory going up, sales going down from 906 to 734. And this is another county in Santa Barbara, same dynamic. And this is happening all across the country. And this is why we're seeing it. So when people say that gross word shift, this is what it means, okay? So we're getting an accurate assessment where we're going with a high degree of probability, continuing to raise the Fed funds rate, which will affect our industry. It's not, I'm aware they're not directly correlated mortgage rates, but they are, there is a correlation. And then we're seeing what's happening on our hyper local markets, which is where inventory is rising and the sales are coming down. Okay. So that's reality. But I want everybody to understand that it's in the dealing of reality that the $1 million that you're after lies. It's in the dealing of the reality that the 10 listings a month that you want lies. It's in the dealing with reality that the version of you that you're aspiring to, that's where it exists. Okay. So we have to get like really, really clear that through dealing with reality, we're going to be able to, make ourselves more valuable to other humans. And then we'll be able to get, if I'm a firm believer, I can help anybody get what, if I can help more people get what they want, I can get whatever I want, right? So, and this part is so interesting because who you become will either make you very happy or very sad. So we have an amazing opportunity to become more. Who's excited about becoming more besides me? Yes, 100%. So now that's the first part. Okay. Now, I do believe that accomplishing anything is 80% psychology and 20% mechanics. So Lars started this call with dropping like focus, right? He's doing that for a very intentional reason, because where focus goes, energy flows, and what you focus on is what you feel, and what you feel is your emotional home. So if I am focused on the fact that the marketplace is shifting and changing, and this is different, and oh my goodness, how am I going to feel? Drop in the chat how you're going to feel. Oh my God, interest rates are going up. Oh my God, like, my listings are sitting on the market and they're not selling. How would you feel if that was your focus? Go ahead and drop that in the chat. Discouraged, yes. Anxious, stressed, nervous, panicking. Yeah, 100%. That's exactly how you're going to feel. Now, instead, if I'm focused like, hey, wait a minute, this is an opportunity for me to become more. This is an opportunity for me to get more skilled. This is an opportunity for me to get better at the pricing portion listing presentation. This is an opportunity for me to get better at setting appointments. This is an opportunity for me to actually get better at pre-qualifying those appointments. If that is my focus, how am I going to feel? Go ahead and drop that in the chat. Yes, increased market share, 100%. What else? What else would you feel? Confident, love this, inspired, yes. So, and what you're going to feel is you're going to feel excited because you're going to see an opportunity. Now, I'm wondering, as a marketplace shifts and change, what types of opportunities present themselves to us? I'm curious. Go ahead and drop in the chat what type of opportunities present themselves to us. What lead sources become more abundant and prevalent? Listings, yep. Distressed sellers, yep. Pre-foreclosures, yep. Expired, yep. For sale by owners, do they actually need your help now? Did they need your help 18 months ago? Nope. So what I'm aware of is these are actually good things that come from a marketplace shift. What else really good happens when the marketplace starts to shift and change? What happens to the amount of real estate agents that are participating in our business? They disappear. And I don't know about you guys, are you tired of getting offers where like the person doesn't even have their phone number in the email? And then you got to Google them, but you can't even find them? Are you tired of having offers where like, they're sending faxes from like Staples to try to do business? So the amount of people that participate goes way, way down. That's a huge opportunity. What else really good happens for your buyers that were having to wait online? And I was getting cakes and pies delivered to me as a listing agent trying to persuade me to take offers. What happens for your buyers? Are there more opportunities, more properties for them to look at? Are you having to rush out immediately? Or are you like, you know what, we can wait 2 days. It's probably still going to be on the market. So these are all positive, good things that come from a marketplace change. Okay. So that focus piece is critically important. And that internal piece is what I'm going to focus on now. And then we're going to shift over to the skills that are required. So there's state, story, and strategy. And I learned this from Tony Robbins, right? So state is like a state of being. When I say mindset, I don't even like that word because it makes you think that it's all in your head, but it's more like a state of being, right? So let me prove my point. How many people besides me in a personal context or a business context have ever had an experience where you're like, this is unacceptable to me? I don't know what the way is, but I'm going to either find the way or make the way. Show of hands, how many people have had that experience in their life? Yeah. So what's interesting is in the right state, you come up with the right story and the right strategy. Right? Now, which one do you think people mostly want to talk to me about in coaching? Do they want me to talk to about their state, their story, or their strategy? Drop in the chat which one you think people want to talk to me about the most. State, story, or strategy? Yep. Story, strategy.
Do you need to drive?
Story. Yeah, and you're
You could do
absolutely
payroll
right.
or whatever.
So I'm hearing some feedback. You can mute yourself. So what I'm aware of is everybody wants to talk to me about strategy, which is cool. I mean, that can be helpful. What do you think actually keeps people stuck?
Aaron, I'm gonna mute everybody and then I gotta unmute you. Give me a second.
Yeah, no worries.
You can unmute yourself now.
Good. Can
Aaron.
everybody hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So what do you think actually keeps people stuck? Drop that in the chat. Is it their state, their story, their strategy? So everybody wants to talk to me about strategy, but what do you think keeps them stuck? Yeah. Yeah. The people that I coach know. It's state.
State.
Right? Because in the right state, you will come up with the right state and the right strategy. Right? So I did 100 transactions one year, 75 were expireds, but then the marketplace got good. And all those expired shrank up. And I made a decision after 90 days, I will not do less deals. I don't know what the way is, but I'm gonna either find a way. And then we did, we found a new lead source and that became 50% of our business. So now the question is how do you manage state? Wouldn't that be good to know how you manage state of being? Yeah. So the first way you manage state when you deal with difficult circumstances is physically. Fear is a visceral response, but so is courage. You have to train courage into your body. Everybody that I know that produces at high levels that are highly productive as individuals, in the morning, they're doing something physical with their body, right? So training that into your being on a daily basis, right? The second is reading. You can miss a meal, but don't ever miss a day of reading. At least 10 pages a day, something of that nature, right? Because as things start to get incredibly negative around you, I have to have a steeled mindset, right? So in other words, if somebody came to you, they knocked on your door and they said, hey, Michael, here's some garbage, and they threw it into your door. Like you opened up the door, they threw it in, and they said bye, and they shut the door and left. Would that be okay with you? No. But yet, do people do that with us on a regular basis? They come up to us and they're like, oh my God, all my deals fell apart, everything's going to shit, and nobody showed up to my open house, blah, 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 right? So I have to be very, very intentional and purposeful about what I'm putting into my head on a regular basis. A suggestion would be is to read books about people that have overcome actually difficult stuff. A marketplace shifting and changing is not real life problems. Okay. So read books about people that have overcome very, very difficult things. Okay. So that way it'll give you perspective. Now, the next way you manage state is to surround yourself with people that have higher standards than you. Okay. So I have somebody that's in my life. I remember I was in a mastermind group maybe 8 or 9 years ago, and I'm sitting at a dinner table, and it's a fancy restaurant. And he looks at me and he says, how much money are you going to make this year? And I was like, I don't know, like maybe like 400,000 or 500,000 at the time. He looked right at me and said, why do you settle for that? I was like, what do you mean, man? He's like, do you think I work harder than you? I'm like, no. He's like, you should be making $1 million a year. And he's like, I feel like I need to buy you dinner. And then he did in front of 8 people. Now you might think like, wow, he's being a jerk. Well, he was actually being kind because he could tell I was uncomfortable because the dinner was so expensive. It was probably like 10% of my income for the year. But what he was also doing is he was also challenging my standards. So I want you to write this down. Who in your life do you give permission to challenge your standards? What you think is a lot? I had a coaching client recently had his best month ever. And he told me, and I was like, good for you. That's awesome. Congratulations. That's really good for part-time. Like, step it up, right? Bigger challenges. So how many people do I have in my life that are challenging my standards? Because what happens is when you surround yourself with people with higher standards, then your standards will want to go up naturally. Okay. And then the last way to manage state is to give more than what you expect to receive in return. So I noticed that as things start to contract, people start to conserve, and they start to like, get into like scarcity mode. But this is more than ever where you want to be adding so much value, like give way more than what you expect to receive in return. I want to exchange with people in ways that are way overly abundant, right? I had a coaching client recently say to me like, hey, should I cut back on like some of the marketing I'm doing? I'm like, I don't know, is it in the best interest of your client? He's like, no. I'm like, who are you thinking about? He's like, myself. I'm like, so stop doing that. Put the client first, add more value, and more will come back to you as time progresses. So add way more value than what you expect to receive in return. And what that will do is that'll counter that scarcity type of thinking. It'll counter that like conservation type of thinking, right? So that's how we manage state. Now, the other way that we do it is through physiology, focus, and language. And this is, remember, 80% psychology, 20% mechanics. So physiology, we talked about the body piece. Focus, Lars, he kind of demonstrated that, having you focus on production and wins, because what you focus on is what you feel, and what you feel is your emotional home, not your physical home that you live in. And then language. You know, in the Bible, it says life and death is in the tongue. You can build something up with words, or you can tear it down with words. So I was on a call recently and somebody said to me, Aaron, the last time the marketplace changed, what did you do to survive? Now that is a very interesting word, because survival has to deal with what? Life and death. So based on her language, I can tell what she's focused on. If she's focused on survival, how is she feeling? Scared, rushed, frantic, right? And how productive are you going to be in that state? Very low. So that's how all of these intertwine. So I remember when the marketplace was collapsing and people were like, oh my God, there's all these foreclosures. I'm like, yeah, that might be true for you. That's not true for me. I'm actually building my business by 25% year over year. There are more expireds, more for sale by owners, more people need my help. And guys, I'm telling you, if you would have seen a picture of me when I was 13, I had a little fluffy mustache and aviator glasses, okay? The guy who's on this call that has sold 2,000 homes in his career, has 100 paid coaching clients, online classes in 23 countries and 8 languages, I made him up through physiology, focus, and language. Okay? Because what they all allow you to do is to create your identity. That's what's at the top. Now, what's interesting about the physiology, focus, and language, what do they all have in common? Drop in the chat what they all have in common. That's right. So drop in the chat, what do physiology, focus, and language all have in common? Mental, self-developed. You can, yes, Danny, you can control it. You have control over your physiology. Well, this is where it gets interesting. Because what that means then is that my identity is malleable. I can change it. You see, so when you see that agent that like, they're like, oh, and their focus is on market dynamics. And by the way, do you think people focus on things they have control over or things they have don't control over? Which one do you think they focus on more? Don't control over, right? So they're focused on things they don't have control over. Their physiology is like this. And then what's coming out of their mouth is it's slow. So what identity are they creating? The agent that doesn't do well when a marketplace changes. That's what they're creating, whether they're conscious of it or not. So we have the ability through our physiology, focus, and language to control our identity. And it's malleable. You can turn it into whatever you want. So if you notice in the movie The Matrix, the whole movie, Morpheus is trying to convince Neo he's the one. And what is Neo doing the whole movie? Nope, you got the wrong person, man. It's not me. I'm not the one. I'm not the one that's going to save humanity. You have the wrong person. Now he hangs around because Trinity, he's interested in her, but like he's like, you got the wrong person. He even goes to the Oracle, and the Oracle tells him, nope, you're not the one. Why would the Oracle tell him he's not the one? Because nobody can tell you you're the one. You have to decide that you are. And once you decide that you are, it doesn't matter if you're the one or not. How many people would like to be the one in this market? The one that takes 10 listings a month. The one that lists all the expireds. The one that generates a new lead source. The one that doesn't sit in their room and suck their thumb and go, nobody's showing up to my open houses. What am I going to do? Like, we get to decide that moment to moment, breath to breath. Okay? It's completely up to us. So with that, now what we're going to shift into, so that's the mindset piece, right? That's the, the 80% psychology piece. Now it's 20% mechanics. So now what we're going to look at are the different skills that we need to master, guys. When I say master, we need to become Jedis at these particular skills. And there's 4 of them. Pre-qualification of listing appointments. I'm wondering, did you have to be particularly skilled at pre-qualing over the last 18 months? No. If anybody said they wanted to sell, they would just, okay, great. You show up and, didn't really matter. Didn't have to ask a whole bunch of questions. The pricing portion of the listing presentation. Anybody besides me noticing that that's becoming increasingly more important? I was just on Home Light's podcast. We spent 45 minutes with them, teaching them how to walk through the pricing portion. He said to me, the host was like, you mean that pricing property is a skill? Yeah, it's 100% skill. We got to get better at that. Price reductions, because those are becoming a thing, right? Actually have to dust that skill off. And then presenting offers that are less than the asking price, because that's going to continue to happen. Drop in the chat if you've had an offer over the last 30 days come in that's less than asking. I'm curious. Let me see. Yes, Tiffany. Yes, a few. Lori. Yes, yes, yes. Guys, look, it's already. We have to get better at this skill. Now, I'm wondering, over the last 18 months, did you have to be a skilled negotiator? Be honest. No. There's no negotiation when all the offers are at ask or higher. That's not negotiating. That's just picking the best one. Okay. So we have to get good at these skills. So how do we do it? All right. So I'm going to give you tactical information now. So we went from like kind of, clouds to now we're going to go to right? Tactical information. Clear the house room by room. My brother-in-law, he's a Marine. He makes my slide decks. So he's always giving these, Marine type analogies, but we clear the house room by room. And what that means is there's motivation, time, and decision makers. Motivation, time, and decision makers. So if I'm speaking to somebody and they say to me like, hey, I'm considering selling, or if you had an offer that was reasonable or acceptable in the next maybe 30 to 45 days, do you think you can sell a property? They say yes. Then we go into a pre-qualification conversation. So it's like, hey, your home's lovely, Erica, and it's in a great area. I don't need to tell you that. Just so I'm clear, was there any particular reason you were even considering selling? Quiet. What I'm looking for is life events. Death, divorce, job relocation, moving to assisted living facilities, retirement. If they say, I want a bigger backyard for my dog, no. Okay, that's not going to cut it. I want an extra room for my beanie babies, no. Okay. Now, let's say they say something to me like, yeah, we're moving to be closer to family. Okay, great. And my job is to help you, Erica. It's never to talk you into doing anything. So just so I'm clear, is it an option for you to not sell the home and still move? Is that a good question to ask? 100%. You need to know that before you go, because then you'll get all excited. You'll be in the car. I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. I'm a great salesperson. I'm a great salesperson. Then you show up there and they're like, yeah, we don't have to sell it, actually. Okay. You would like to know that beforehand. The next question is it an option for you to rent the property and still move? Is that important to know? 100%. So I'm clearing the motivation room, and I don't leave that room until I know. You would, in this marketplace, do not go on an appointment that you are not 1000% clear on what the motivation is. And that it's an 8, 9, or a 10. Not like it would be nice, not like if you could get me, Erica, the price that I want, or Tatiana, if you bring me an offer for $1 million, then I'll sell it. Like, no. There has to be a defined motivation other than price. Because is this the marketplace for them to be only motivated by price? No. That was 6 or 7 months ago. Now they want to believe that it's still the marketplace that it was before, but it's not. Okay. So I need to clear the house room by room. So first is motivation. Once we're clear on motivation, then it's time. So I'm wondering, Erica, like ideally in terms of what you want, because that's what's most important, how soon would you like for me to actually have the home on the market for sale? Quiet. They're going to tell you. Now, let's say they say something like, well, I was thinking like within the next 4 or 5 months. Okay. Well, let's say that you knew that if you made a decision to wait, that through no fault of your own or mine, just because of market dynamics, that it could end up affecting how much we could get. In other words, if we waited, we could get less than what we could get today. Would you still be inclined to wait, or would you want to move your timeline up? Because is that a fact? With a high degree of probability, is that true? So by asking that question, we can shrink that time frame down, right? And they say like, well, let's say there's a condition. Well, we have to like do this in the home. Okay, well, what we can do then is we can take care of the appropriate documentation, and we can begin to pre-market the property. So that way we let people know it's getting ready to come on the market for sale. So that way, when it is ready, we can open up the floodgates, and hopefully that results in lots of showings and offers. Does that approach make sense to you? Right? Yeah, it makes sense. So always with urgency, but I want to get clear on time. If somebody tells me we're thinking about selling in the next year, am I going to go on that listing appointment? No, I'm personally not. If I'm going to take time away from my family, my children, other things I could be doing, or people I could be doing them with, you're going to sign a contract when I see it. Or You're ready to sign a contract when I see you, right? So time is the second one. Ideally, how soon would you like to get on the market? If they say, within the next, like right away, they say in the next month, okay. And again, we can still use that same, whether it's a month, 2 months, 3 months, 5 months out. If you knew that through no fault of your own or mine, because of market dynamics shifting and changing, if you made a decision to wait, it could end up affecting how much you could get. Meaning we could get more now versus if you waited, would you still want to wait or would you want to move your timeline up? And they will probably say something like, well, what do you mean, Tiffany? Yep, I can see you. So if they say, well, what do you mean? Well, just by you saying that demonstrates that we should get together and discuss market dynamics. So I'm curious, if we were to meet under normal conditions, would you be available in the evenings to the afternoons? We go into a closing sequence, right? Now, the next part that we do, so first we clear the room, right, for motivation, then time, then it's decision makers. So, hey, I've only spoken to you, Richard. I can hear in your voice that you're super excited about selling. I'm curious, I see that, Tiffany's on title with you. How does she feel about the move? And then be quiet. Is it important to know that all decision makers are on the same page? 100%. How many people besides me have ever gone to an appointment and realized you weren't speaking to the decision maker? And how quickly does that diminish your excitement, your enthusiasm, your focus, like all of that? How quickly does that go in the toilet? Because you're all excited and then they're like, yeah, like my wife's the one that's really going to make this decision. I'm like, where is she? Well, she's like, grooming the dogs. And you're like, okay, I need to know that before I go. So motivation, time, and decision makers. These are things I need to be clear on. And on the motivation piece, again, it's really, really important. I'm listening for life events. Death, divorce, job relocation, moving to assisted living facilities, tired of being a landlord. So I set an appointment this morning and she was like, yeah, we don't have to sell it. I said, great, because I'm not here to twist your arm and talk you into selling it. I guess I'm curious, how would your life improve if you did? Simplify, we don't have to deal with tenants, whatever. I'm like, okay. And at this stage in your life, how important is that to you? Yeah, it's pretty important. So, if the numbers work, like, we'll probably get it sold. I'm like, all right. Well, and I also know too that, if you decided to rent it, because I know the tenant's been in there for a while, you could probably rent it for like, $400 or $500 more than what you were getting previously. Is that something you're sincerely interested in doing and being a landlord for an extended period of time and babysitting tenants? Or is your preference just to cash out of the tenant? Nah, preference was cash out for simplification, like I mentioned. Okay, good. But do you see how I'm getting clear on that before we meet each other? Right? Is this making sense to people? Let me see a show of hands. Yes. Good. Okay, so the next skill we need to get really good at is the pricing portion of the listing presentation. And what I'm aware of is a lot of the training out there is like this idea, like I study homes and prices every day, therefore I assume you'll list with me at a price that will cost you. Now, I need everybody on this call to understand that is for a time frame that doesn't exist anymore. So 50 years ago, before the internet, nobody had access to any information with regards to real estate. I know that that's very difficult for our minds to comprehend. There was no internet. There was no, like, nothing. You had no idea what was happening in the real estate market. You had to speak to a real estate agent. Period, end of story. There may be some of you on this call that remember that. There was an actual book, like a phone book of listings that would be updated once a week. Okay? So that approach of I study homes and prices every day, therefore I assume this will be price cost to sell. Like, that is for a time frame that doesn't exist anymore. Because now I'm curious, do consumers have a lot of information about real estate now? Yeah. Are they studying their home more than you are? Yeah, every day. They're online, on Redfin, on Zillow. So why am I having a conversation in this like kind of patriarchal way? Like, I know and you don't. That, my friends, is dumb. Stop doing it. Okay? They have all the information. Instead, what this should be is collaborative, which is more like, hey, so in the pre-qual, I will ask a question like, you know what, like you strike me to be someone who's pretty savvy. I'm sure you've gone online and looked at some of these sites to get estimates of value. So I'm wondering, did you have an idea at all of realistically what you were thinking in terms of price? Now, have they been online? Yes. Do they have an idea? Yes. Would I like to know it before I see them? Yes. Like today, I'm supposed to go on a listing appointment in the afternoon. She wants 1.5. I did the homework. It's more like 1.2. Is it good that I know that before I go there? Because then I sit on the appointment and both the husband and wife are like this the whole time. and they want to argue with me, right? So the pricing portion, listing presentation, guys, this is it. I'm telling you, this is like one of the critical skills that we got caught flat-footed because we haven't had to use it in a while. Okay. So it needs to be collaborative. Like, look, we're going to study some information together as a team, and what we're going to see come to the surface is not a pinpoint to the penny. Instead, what we're going to see is a very tight, realistic range as to what would be reasonable. And then from there, it's going to come down to strategy, right? Because how we choose to price something is a strategy and attempt to get the most. And we'll go over the strategies that you have at your disposal because I want you to feel comfortable with the one we end up choosing. And I want to be clear, whatever you decide, I'm going to support you 100%. Notice, is that much more collaborative than Josh walking in and being like, your home is worth this. Are you prepared to list it at my price? Much more collaborative. Not only that, who's in control? They are, which they should be, because it's their home. Hey, newsflash, it's their property, not yours. It's their equity, not yours. So, collaborative, right? And then how I set that up is very intentional because the majority, we have to understand, guys, we haven't reached a point of capitulation. What I mean by capitulation is that sellers realize like, oh, this is different. We haven't reached that point yet, okay? They don't realize what this means. They don't realize that somebody who was approved in January for 800,000 is now approved for 643,000. They don't understand that. So they still think that it's like, the previous environment. So we have to help them to self-discover. So you can say something like, hey, when we review this information, I find that it's exceptionally helpful to really do our best to try to look at the CDIs of the buyer, because I'm aware that the buyer's hat is different than the seller's hat, right? And really be asking ourselves and saying, okay, if you were going to buy this place all over again, having seen what's on the market, Stephanie, and not selling, and then Eric seen what's sold and closed most recently, as a buyer, where you personally would feel comfortable, Shannon and Jeremy, making an offer that you believe would be reflective of fair market value, because more likely not a buyer will feel pretty similar to you. Does that make sense? And they're like, yeah, that makes sense. Great. So we'll review this information together as a team. We'll see this realistic range emerge. We'll discuss strategy, because price is a strategy and attempt to get the most. And I want you to feel comfortable with the strategy we ultimately end up choosing. I can answer any questions you may have. And then, provided that it all makes sense and you feel comfortable and confident, we can take the next steps. Sound good? Sounds good. Okay. But why am I doing that? Because there's something called the endowment effect. It's a psychological quirk that we have as humans, where if it's mine, I think it's better and I think it's worth more. Anybody besides me ever noticed that in another human before? You ever noticed that in yourself? You're like, there's a comedian that said, you ever notice that my stuff is stuff and your stuff is shit? That's how we are as humans. And if the majority of Americans have most of their net worth tied up into their house, how attached are they to that? Very. So because of that, it's very difficult for them to view it objectively as a commodity that's bought and sold. But when I say I'm aware that the seller's hat is different than the buyer's hat, what am I doing? I'm shifting them to the buyer's frame. And the buyer's frame can actually filter that information more accurately. Because I'm sure you worked with somebody who bought and sold, and on the sales side, they're like, oh yeah, I redid the doorknobs and the toilet. It's worth like 50,000 more. And then they go and shop and they're like, what are these sellers thinking? Way too high. That what you're witnessing is the endowment effect. So the reason that I'm presenting that way is because I'm countering the endowment effect. I'm getting you to think about it more clearly before we even look at the information. Is this making sense? Yes, I'm aware it's a little geeked out on sales, but like it's legit. Okay. So then we go over the information, we start to look at it. And then as we look at the information, let's say they say like, the last closed sale, it's most recent, right across the street was at 550 a month ago, and they're thinking 600. Has this been happening on listing appointments? Yes. And they say, well, I was thinking like 600. So great. And trust me, I'd love to be your superhero, put an S on my chest, tape on my back, and make that happen for you. At the same time, I guess I'm curious, if you were a buyer, not a seller, and you were going to buy this place all over again, having seen that the last closed sale was at 550, and knowing that interest rates have gone up and the cost of your mortgage is a little bit more, where do you think you would make an offer that you believe would be reflective of fair market value? Now, when I say fair, you know what that activates in our brains as Americans? We have a very strong concept of fairness. Super strong. If we think something is unfair, we will freak out. Case in point, we knew that rich people give like money to get their kids into colleges. We kind of all knew that. But once we really knew, we were like, oh my God, people got to go to jail because it's not fair. So when I say to you, like, listen, what would be, where do you think you would make an offer that you would believe would be reflective of fair market value? It triggers in your brain, you're like, oh, I have to be fair. Now, when you do that, they're either going to say something reasonable, unreasonable, or they're going to hem and haw. Reasonable is they're probably like, well, probably around like 550. Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. The marketplace is showing us around 550 seems to make sense. Notice who's showing us? Who's showing us? The market. Versus you guys. I'm telling you because I am a certified real estate consultant. Okay, you had to get a 70 on a test, which is 1 point above a D, $1,000 and not be a felon yet. That's what qualified you to be a fucking real estate consultant. Like, I don't know why you think that makes you some magical gift to real estate. So instead of you doing that, it's like, look, the marketplace, I'm in agreement with you. The marketplace is showing us somewhere around 550 seems to be reasonable. So now it's just a question of how do we get there? And there's two strategies in an attempt to get the most. And I'd like to share them with you because I want you to feel comfortable with the one you end up choosing. Whatever you decide, I'm going to support you 100%. Notice I'm aligning myself with you again. Do you feel like you're in control? Do you feel like I'm on your team? Not this like adversarial thing where we get into an argument, right? So it's one strategy we can choose is where we start higher than 5. The logic is I can always come down, I can't go back up. And I want to leave room to, and they always say, negotiate. Why am I saying that to them? Because they're thinking it. Right? Now, there's nothing wrong with that strategy. It's not bad per se. I don't want to make it bad. I don't want to make them wrong, naughty, right? There are a few considerations, right, that I want you to be aware of. The first one is that strategy usually takes longer. Now, I know you were kind enough to share with me that in terms of the move and relocating, you need to be out to the next destination in the next 90 days. Is that right? Yes. Okay, well, in order to make that happen, we would have to be under contract in the next 30 to 45 days because it usually takes 30 to 45 days to close. Have you considered that? And they're like, no, I haven't really thought about that. Yeah, so that's something to consider with regards to the strategy of starting because we could jeopardize timeframes. Now, I'm curious, what would happen on the outside chance if we were still sitting here 90 days from now and your home wasn't sold? What would that mean for you and your family? Well, I'd have to, Sharon would have to stay back and Jeremy would make the move. Okay, and is that optimal for you guys? No, we really don't want to do that. Okay, so that's something to consider. Now, the second thing to consider with regards to time is that, where we are in the macro kind of economic state as far as the economy is concerned. So I don't know if you've noticed, have you felt at the grocery store or the gas pump that inflation's at a 41-year record high? Have you guys noticed that? And everybody's like, yeah, Stephanie, because she's like independently wealthy, she hasn't noticed, but everybody else has noticed. Okay, like, yeah, that's like a thing. Okay, and when that happens, when consumers are having to spend more money for just normal goods and services, do they become like really like extravagant with their spending, or do they start to conserve? They start to conserve. That's called consumer sentiment. Would you say that consumer sentiment has changed over the last 6 months? Yes. Okay. Now the second thing that's happening is that interest rates have gone up faster in the last 7 months than they have in the last 30 years. Did you know that? No, didn't know that at all. Yep. So in January, they were actually at like 3%. Do you know what they're at now? No, like 5, 5.5, some places 6%. So what that means is that somebody who was approved for your home in January is now approved for about $100,000 to $150,000 less. Now, what do you think that does to the pool of prospective buyers, Mr. and Mrs. Seller? Shrinks it. Yep. So the concern is if we start high, right? The question becomes, what seems more probable, that over the next 60, 90, 120 days that we're in an economic environment in which things are going up exponentially and prices are continuing to go up and we're expanding economically? Or does it seem more probable that we're in an environment where we're starting to pump the brakes economically and there's going to be downward pressure? Which do you think seems more likely, Mr. and Mrs. Summer? And they're going to be like, well, the second one. Yeah. So that's something to consider if we use that first approach of starting high, is that we can end up chasing the market. And you don't want to do that, do you? No. Now notice for all of the adults that are on this call, when I said chasing the market, and this is how you teach humans, by the way. When I said chasing the market, in your mind, what did you hear? Lower the price. Did I say that? No. This is magic Jedi shit right here, guys. Come on. Okay. So we may end up chasing the market, and you don't want to do that, do you? They're like, no, we don't do that. Okay, and then that leads us to the second strategy. And the second strategy, which I've seen sellers get really good results from, is where they position a property very close to what sold recently, or actually a little bit below. And in doing so, what happens is they get ahead of this market, changing. They can get an offer, maybe sometimes more than one. We are still seeing that if people utilize that approach. They can get an offer that's acceptable, extract the capital, and they don't have to worry about downward pressure and economic volatility moving forward. Now, either one of those strategies are okay. I just want you to feel comfortable with the one we end up choosing. So my question is, Kevin, based on what you're looking to accomplish and why, based on the time frame you'd like to make this happen in light of the economic environment that we're in at the moment, which one of those two pricing strategies do you think would serve you and your family best? That's a lot different than when we went over the last 18 months and said, hey, what do you want to list it for? 650? Sure, let's give it a shot. And then you put it on the market and you get 690. That's not happening anymore. This is a skill you need to get very, very good at. I should be able to stop you. If I was like your team leader or whatever, and we were in an office, before you went home for the day, I'd tap you on the shoulder and be like, hey, Sharon, we want to list it at 600, even though it's 550. Go. You should be able to have that conversation, okay? Because it's going to be a reoccurring conversation that we have all the time. Now, if somebody says to you like, hey, well, my neighbor, they got 600 5 months ago. I think like I should get 700. Yeah, I understand. And I understand how that could be a little bit confusing, right? So I guess my question to you is, would you say that marketplaces are static, meaning they stay the same, or are they fluid? Are they constantly changing? They'd be like, well, they change. Yeah. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to go over some changes that we're seeing in the marketplace in hopes that doing so can give you all the information you need so you can see perhaps why your experience may be different than your neighbor's was 5 months ago. Would that be okay? Yeah. Well, 5 months ago, interest rates were at about, if it closed 5 months ago, that means it went under contract 6 months ago, maybe 7 months ago. And at that time frame, interest rates were at 3%. Did you know that? No. You know what they're at now? Nope, 5.5%, 6%. Now, what that means is that buyers have lost about $100,000 to $150,000 in purchasing power over the last 7 months. Now, what do you think that does to the pool of prospective buyers? Do you think that makes them bigger or smaller? Smaller. And when this pool of prospective buyers goes down, what usually happens to inventory? Well, it goes up. Yep. And when demand softens and inventory goes up, what happens to prices? There's downward pressure, 100%. So just by you saying that demonstrates that you're beginning to see why your neighbor had an experience that they had and why ours might be able to get that. Does that make sense to you? And they're like, yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So the pricing portion of listing presentation, we got to get really good at. I'm noticing time, so I want to make sure that we touch on price reductions. There is a strategy behind that. You state the intention. The purpose of the call today is to give you all the information that you need so that way you can make the decision that you feel is best. Whatever you decide, I'll support you 100%. Number two, explain what happened. We've been on the marketplace for 30 days. In that time frame, we've had 15 showings. Did you know that? Yeah, I did. You've been giving me updates, 100%. So what that means is that what we're doing is working. It's driving traffic into the property. At the same time, having that number of showings and no offers, Michael, it's actually concerning me. Can I tell you why? Yeah. Well, the reason why, yeah, I'll touch on lead sources. The reason why is that the marketplace is seeing enough value to look and just not enough to buy. So now we revisit motivation. You were kind enough to share with me that the main reason that you wanted to sell the property is X, Y, and Z. Is that still the same or has that changed? Still the same. Okay, so with that being said, the marketplace is showing us we need to make an adjustment in terms of the price. The question is just simply how much. Now, if we were getting 20, 25 showings, we won't be missing by much at all, maybe 2 or 3%. Being that we're getting 15 showings and no offers, we're missing by more than that, more like 5%. And that would take us from this to this. Do I have your permission to go ahead and put that in so we can get this one sold? There's a formula. State the intentions, explain what's happened, revisit motivation, explain what they need to do, close, and then handle objections because they will object. Okay. And then as far as like lead sources, because Lars is telling me to focus on that, we want life events, guys. So past clients' areas of influence, it's always a good lead source. Make sure you have a legit 40+ touch program for them. Online leads, make sure you're easily found online. So Google My Business, like get as many reviews as you can. I think 100 is like a minimum standard. These online platforms that give out leads, I talked about that the last time I was here, the fast experts, the effective agents, there's UpNest is another one. They do take referral fees, but they are a lead source. And then the last one I would propose is life events. So like the riches are in the niches, right? So you pick a niche that's like outside the purview, like what I would call a blue ocean. So there's red oceans and there's blue oceans. Our expired's a red ocean. There's a lot of sharks there and there's a lot of blood in the water, right? But with niches, they're blue oceans because there's not that many people hanging out because it either requires a more specialized knowledge, an understanding of law, right? There's something that's a barrier to entry. So life events would be things like divorce. Right? I got a client in Hoboken, New Jersey. We worked with him for the last couple of years. He would sponsor the association events for divorce attorneys. And then he met a judge and now she plugs him in on deals like 10, 12 times a year. And at his average commission, it's like $200,000, right? So divorce, death. I live in Heaven's Waiting Room in South Florida. So because of that, that's a big source for us, right? Because that's market, I'm curious, are divorces market resistant? Yep, they happen all the time. And actually more of them happen when shit gets tough because people look around, they're like, yeah, I really didn't like you to begin with, right? Then death also happens no matter what, right? Job relocation. I have another client out in Kansas City. He services the largest hospital in Kansas City. He does all of their relocation. Okay? So probably 50 to 60 doctors, nurses a year go through there. He does all of their housing needs. So he's built a legit, sizable $1 million a year business from that source. Okay. So death, divorce, job relocation, moving to assisted living facilities. A lot of those living facilities are expensive and people need to sell their homes in order to move in. The intake director there, that person's worth getting to know for sure because they're going to refer people, right? Retirement, just kind of these life events. And by focusing on life events, I'm focusing my time. If I'm doing outbound and I'm going after business, I want to focus my time on things that have high degrees of probabilities of conversion. So I'm curious with divorce, do they have to sell? Yeah. Sometimes it's in the decree, you have to sell the property. With death, 60% of those homes are free and clear, and there's super high levels of motivation, right? Job relocation, you have to move, right? Retirement, moving to assisted living facility, you have to move. It's not like it would be nice to, like we're thinking about it, right? So those would be the things that I would focus on. So I'm noticing our time. I want to be respectful of that. Hopefully what I share with you is helpful or useful. I don't know if you guys have any quick questions you want to drop in the chat, or if Lars, you want to open it up.
Yeah. Any final questions? This has been awesome. And I mean, your journey and my journey are very similar. Like I was in the business when it was just turning into a bloodbath crap show, 15,000 agents to 5,000 agents in my market. And just remember, the people come to a call like this, they're looking for like, give me the lead source. It's the lead source. And like, it's not the lead source that's going to get you to crush what's coming our way. It's the psychology and mindset piece of it. And I just remember, as it was all hitting the fan, I eliminated all news, 100% of any news, all social media. And I would just tell myself every day, I remember it wasn't proper English, but I would say, nobody can tell me I can't sell a house today. Yeah. Like it was so liberating. Like I'm going to go out and I'm going to sell a house today. I'm going to earn $10,000 today.
I love it, brother. And the mantra that I would use is two of them. One is there's no shortcuts to success. And the good news is I've stopped looking for them because I think people spend a whole lifetime trying to find shortcuts. The second one is there's somebody right now. So here's what's true, guys. For everybody on this call, in your marketplace, I don't care where it is in the United States, there's somebody right now in your marketplace that made a decision to sell their house today. My job is to go and find them. They're there. It's not a question of if, it's just a question of getting it in front of them. Right? So if I were to give you guys, imagine there was a mountain of dirt. And I said to you, like, listen, there is gold in this huge mountain of dirt. I know it. I did geological tests. It's there. And you're like, okay. And I'm like, you can look for it, but you can only use this tiny little shovel. One scoop at a time. Now, if you took a scoop out and you notice that it was dirt, would you start to yell at the dirt? You're like, God damn you, dirt. How dare you be dirt? You're so dumb. You're such stupid dirt. No, because dirt is dirt, right? You would take a scoop and be dirt and keep going. But if you knew, I can change your whole mindset. What if I told you you're 20 no's away from somebody's going to list their property and you make $10,000? Would you be excited about the first no? Would you be excited about the fifth no? Ooh, I'm getting closer. Yeah, right? So it's just all like Lars is saying, like it's 80% psychology and 20% mechanics. There are people in the marketplace right now that want to do business. You just have to find them, and you have to turn yourself into, with skills, the type of person where you're coming from a place of contribution, you can add tremendous value, and then you can close and you can business.
Can you quickly name the referral sources again?
Yeah, so past client centers of influence, obviously. Make sure you have a legit, solid 40.
More like the OpCDs,
Yeah, so
those?
UpNest is one of them. Realtor.com actually just bought UpNest. They take referral fees. I think it's 25-30%. There's another one called Fast Expert. There's another one called Agent Pronto. There's another one called Ideal, but Ideal you have to produce a certain amount. I think it's like 100 deals a year to be and then there's HomeLight. HomeLight is another one. Now, the deal to understand, and I know Lars would share this with you, is that they do take referral fees. Like, you have to be clear on that. And the net gets compressed when you do that. But I do think that if you have it, like if you have a good past client center of influence, you have a niche that you can go after, plus you have that kind of standing next to you, then even though this is compressed over here, you make up for it in those other areas where you're not having to referral fees.
And listings have babies, and you can sort of prospect the neighborhood and all that good stuff.
Exactly, and you just have to understand that those sources, like, they want you to be their employee. They kind of treat you that way. You have to update their CRM and like all that other stuff. So it's like an exchange of goods and services.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm being lazy because I don't want to figure out pay-per-click and I don't want to spend the money. So you could do it for me. And like, okay, I'll service the leads, we'll do the deals. And like Lars said, it'll probably lead to other transactions.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, if everyone can unmute themselves and give a hoot and holler to Aaron for spending his time and giving us.
Hoot. The lead builders.
The
jeweler.
The jeweler in the house, boy. Hey. Nice hair.
Hey, it's my pleasure, guys. And again, if I can serve you, if I can help you in any way, just let me know. You can find me at Aaron Novello on Instagram. I know a couple of you guys asked me about scripts and stuff. Just DM me and we can get you the appropriate information.
Awesome. Much love, brother. Much love, everyone. We'll talk to you guys soon. Be good.
Appreciate you. Be great.
All right.